Thank you for viewing this video brought to you by Prosecutors Center for Excellence and Equitas. On May 12th, 2022, we hosted a recruitment and retention pop-up. The following presentation from that event features Kimberly Spahos, the Executive Director of the North Carolina Conference of District Attorneys. She is discussing recruiting and retaining talent in a new era of accountability and flexibility. A full biography, additional videos, and materials are available at pceinc.org under events. Thank you.
Kimberly, could you give us an overview of this issue and how the new attorneys that are coming out of law schools are impacted by the various issues that you're going to be discussing?
Absolutely. And it's really an honor for me, Chris, to talk about this topic. It could not be more important or more timely than it is right now. And so I'm really impressed that we are discussing this on a national level. I want to start by saying, oftentimes, while we believe prosecutors are special, and we are special in a lot of ways, this recruitment and retention phenomenon right now is really impacting the entire workforce. 36% of HR professionals say that recruitment is their top challenge. And that's across the board for everyone coming into the workplace. And so when we're talking about working in the criminal justice system and specifically working as prosecutors, I think it's so important for us to understand what law students are focusing on right now, the people that are coming into our profession. What's important to them? What are they looking for? What is their focus? And when we think about that, we cannot deny the impact nationwide that social justice reform and the social justice movement has had on recruitment and on the mindset of law students. And we also can't discount the impact that COVID and the pandemic has had on both recruitment and retention. What the statistics show us is that 35% of employees across the board are going to leave their job in 2023. And really, as I mentioned, this is recruitment and retention is at the very top of every human resource professional's list of things that they need to focus on. Just to share a few statistics with you that are North Carolina specific. For us, our prosecutor applicants are down 31%, and it's even higher than 31% in our rural districts across the state. And it's not just prosecutors, it's also the administrative staff, the legal assistants, the victim advocates, and the investigators that are working in our offices. And for us in North Carolina, we have a 38% decrease in those applicants from just 3 years ago. And that really is higher in urban districts. So that was an interesting thing for me to look at, that in rural districts in our state, we have a higher percentage of applicants that are down for prosecutors, but in urban districts, the higher percentage is in the administrative professionals. And from a retention standpoint, since we're looking at both recruitment and retention, just again, for another example in North Carolina, our turnover rate is up 29% for our administrative professionals, and it's up 37% for our prosecutors. And the retention percentages are much higher in urban areas than they are in rural areas. So when we look at that, we need to think about, why is this happening? And why is it happening at such a high percentage in prosecutor offices? So I want to go back a little bit now to talking about recruitment and talking about what it is that law students, people that are coming into the field, those new lawyers that we'd be recruiting for new positions in prosecutor offices across our country, what is it that they're looking for? What is it that they want? And so I want to overarch everything you hear today with you thinking about this recruitment process the same way we think about jury selection. And what I mean by that is we're not the only ones doing the picking. Just like when we are in jury selection, we're not just the ones trying to choose the jurors that are best suited for this case. We know that they're making assessments about us every step of the way during that jury selection process. The same thing is happening in your recruitment process. And so we're not at the place anymore that we have a huge list of resumes of people waiting to come into the DA's offices. And we have to realize that in addition to us trying to find the right fit for our offices, these incoming new lawyers, they're really looking for the right fit too. And so we have to come at this process differently than we have in the past. What we know is that student loan debt is higher than ever. We know that people are coming into this field of work with debt over $130,000, $140,000, $150,000. And so for recruitment, money and salary has always been interesting and been a top priority, but it's taking a back seat now to people coming into the workforce to how does the organization reflect their value system? And we need to understand that. People who are coming into the workforce in general, and specifically those that are coming into prosecutors' offices, are looking to find a space where what's important to them, the values that they exhibit in their personal and professional life, they want to see those values in the professional offices that they go to work in. We know that that's a little different than in the past. But what is not different is from a retention standpoint. While people may be enticed to go to a job for salary, that is absolutely not why they stay in positions. And so we need to remember that as leaders in our offices, that organizational culture is so important. Over the last 6 weeks, I have had meetings with the Career Development and Services Department at every law school that is in North Carolina. And what I have heard repeatedly is that the incoming surveys that they're doing of students that are coming into law school, the primary focus of those that are interested in criminal law say that the top thing that they're interested in is criminal justice, social justice reform. And so it's really important that as prosecutors, we show those new potential lawyers and those new potential prosecutors how they can have a greater impact in our offices than they can anywhere else. We need to make sure that they understand that coming into a prosecutor's office is where you have the most discretion to make the most impact in your community and the most impact in the criminal justice system. So while I've given you a broad brush stroke of some of the issues that are out there right now, I'd like to end my time before we move on to the next speaker with giving you just a few ideas of some of the ways that you can look at the issues that I have just mentioned and how do you incorporate and implement into your recruitment process and your retention strategies, techniques that will help you build and continue to build strong offices, but also keep those folks in place. First, it's really important that you create an exceptional onboarding experience. All of the research shows that that onboarding experience should be more than just what might have been familiar to many of you who have been in this work for a long time, where you kind of come in and you get a docket and somebody says, here's your courtroom, go have at it. Our work and our process of bringing people on board in our office, we just can't skip on the first steps. We just can't skimp on the first steps. And we have to focus more on the organizational culture of our office than the logistics. And so really folks need to see and realize very early on how they can connect internally with the teams in our office, but also with the things that are most important to them. They need to see very quickly how your organization is going to reflect the values of the community. It's also really critical that you connect people early on with mentors in your office, because this onboarding process is your first opportunity to connect and it's your first opportunity to integrate. Next, you've got to build team engagement, not just assume that it's there. And in fact, even if you have historically had in your office a strong mentor program, or you've historically had what you thought was, really strong team engagement, with the backlog issues that we're facing now and the current decrease in staff and open positions, our employees, our team members are feeling more pressure than ever. And when they're feeling more pressure than ever with the substantive work that they have to do, they are spending less time on engaging with each other and less time on engaging and mentoring new members of your team. And so only 21% of employees across the board right now say that they are truly engaged. And you want people to be engaged. You want to build that team engagement, because when you do that, your folks say, my work group has a strong sense of team spirit. People are proud to tell others that they work for your organization when they feel engaged with the organization, and they're more committed to your office's success. When people feel a strong sense of team engagement, they say that they would work harder for longer hours if it demands it, but they also feel personally effective at their job. And so that needs to be a real focus of the work that you're doing in order to both recruit and retain. Next, you have to provide professional development. The folks that are coming into the workforce now want to grow. They want to grow individually, and they want to grow in their own profession. And so it's important that you have a plan that you share in your job postings. If you are using the same job posting for open prosecutor positions that you used 5 years ago, that's your first problem. You really need to jazz up that job description. People need to know that they're coming into an environment where they're going to have professional support. People also need to know most of your offices, I'm sure, provide free or very, very low cost legal education where they can get their required hours for what your state bar or state bar associations require. You need to promote that. You need to let people know in the job descriptions that they're coming into an office that focuses on well-being and wellness, but also focuses on team spirit and from a value structure. And so you really need to think about, what does that job posting look like to link people in? And then once they get into your office, they need to know they're going to have the opportunity to develop professionally, to learn and to grow. Next, you've got to concentrate on an organizational culture. Now, I know that most of people might be sitting out there going, we're just trying to figure out how we can get our cases on the calendar to a jury and dispose. We've got more cases than we've ever had, and the pandemic has put us in a bad space. But if you don't focus on creating and promoting that organizational culture, you're going to lose new employees, and you're going to lose those that have been on your team. So spend some time with your team defining what your organizational values are, and make your office one that focuses on relationships. When we invest in people, everything else works itself out. So you want to create that spirit of community in your office that people feel from the very first call they get for an interview, because nearly half of employees in any profession would leave their current job for a lower paying job with an organization that has a better culture. And so that's really important for you to focus on your organizational culture and make sure people know about it. And then you have to have a team that encourages, gives feedback, gives acknowledgement, and gives recognition. And I don't mean here just the blanket thank you. I mean, you need to tie together people's workspace and their work performance with specific pieces of advice, feedback, and engagement. You want to implement meaningful personal recognition, and you want to not just celebrate victories. As prosecutors, we've been pretty good at learning how to celebrate the victory at trial, the guilty verdict for someone that really creates a public safety threat. But we also need to remember to celebrate people's values, uncompromising integrity, a spirit of teamwork. You want to celebrate those things as well. And then last, but certainly not least, you want to focus on work-life blend. We talk a lot about balance, and I'm not a fan of discussing work-life balance, because when you use the word balance, it inherently means that anything can throw you off your balance. And so you want to know that and understand it. But you also want people to get that right blend. When something's blended well, it's hard to separate it out. Once you put all those ingredients into a cake, you can't separate the flour back out from the eggs. And so you want people's work and the blend of their work and their life to really put them in a place that they're not experiencing quick burnout. And so those would just be a few tips for you to model and for you to think about as you reach a very different population of people coming into the workforce, and also a changed population that have been doing this work for a long time.